Welcome, listeners, to another deep dive on vibrations and manifestations. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Jared. So, welcome to Season 2, Deep Dive 122. And I want to start by pointing out something that I think is just wild. You are currently living with access to, more data, more expert advice, and more optimization tools than literally any human being in the history of the world.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer volume is staggering.
Right. But here's the thing. Why are you, the listener, sitting there feeling more paralyzed, more anxious, and just more confused about what to do with your life than your grandparents ever were?
That is the big question.
It is. Because the answer isn't that you lack information. I mean, the answer is actually that your brain is actively crashing under the weight of it. So today, we are talking about how to find your actual direction when the world just, won't stop screaming at you.
It's basically the ultimate modern paradox. We've built this entire society that just worships information.
Yes, exactly.
When we operate on this unspoken assumption that if we just gather enough data points, the perfect life choice is just going to magically reveal itself on a spreadsheet.
Like it's a math equation.
Right, but the reality is the more we consume, the more immobilized we actually become.
I had a moment just a few days ago that, honestly, I think perfectly encapsulates this exact mechanism. And it was literally the most mundane, low-stakes situation imaginable.
Oh, I can't wait. What happened?
Well, I went to the grocery store, and I had a list with 3 specific items on it. I needed spinach, almond milk, and coffee beans. That's it, like a 10-minute mission tops.
The intention is always so pure, right? I can already picture your cart slowly filling up with things you didn't need.
Oh, it was an absolute, complete system failure. I walked into the store, feeling completely capable, totally regulated, and I made my way over to the coffee aisle.
First mistake.
Right. Now, I didn't just see coffee. I saw 47 different roasts. There's single origin, fair trade, dark roast, light roast, shade grown, notes of cocoa, notes of elderberry.
It's just an assault on the senses.
It really is.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I'm standing there holding 2 different bags of beans,
Yeah.
and my thumb is just hovering over my phone because I'm cross-referencing reviews on some coffee connoisseur blog.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Wondering if my entire morning routine is fundamentally flawed because I'm not drinking the shade-grown Ethiopian blend.
Well, and notice the physical shift there, too. You went from this very calm, simple mission to active biological stress.
Completely.
Yeah.
I felt it. And then, I went to get almond milk, and I was confronted by sweetened, unsweetened vanilla, extra creamy barista blend.
Barista blend is a trap.
It's a total trap. And by the time I finally made it to the checkout line, my physiological state had completely altered. I mean, my heart rate was actually elevated.
Wow. Over almond milk.
Over milk. My jaw was tight. I realized I was actually holding my breath. And I looked down into my basket, and I had the spinach.
Yeah.
But I also had a seasonal scented candle, some artisan figs bread, and 3 bags of exotic root vegetable chips that I absolutely did not need.
But you deeply, viscerally wanted them in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that moment of pure sensory overwhelm, I just needed the comfort of root vegetables.
It's so funny, but what you are describing is actually a miniature survival response. That tension in your jaw, that elevated heart rate, that is the real biological cost of processing way too many variables at once.
And it's funny, we're just talking about groceries, obviously. But I want to take that exact feeling, that literal physical tension, that complete cognitive gridlock at the sheer volume of options, and I want you, the listener, to map that onto your actual life right now.
Yes. Let's look at the bigger picture.
Because I know you felt this. Think about what we call the laptop spiral.
Yeah. The laptop spiral is an absolute epidemic right now. It really is the silent killer of human potential.
It so is. You open your computer because you want to solve a relatively simple problem. Maybe you're sitting there at your desk thinking, how do I grow my income this year? Or what should my next career move be?
Or even just how do I market this one new creative project?
Exactly. So you type one single question into the search bar, and within milliseconds, you have 50 conflicting answers.
And these aren't just passing thoughts. These are people speaking with absolute terrifying certainty.
Yes. The SEO experts are demanding you do this one specific thing, and then the mindset coaches are telling you the exact opposite.
And the financial advisors are screaming about a completely different strategy altogether. And all of them are claiming to hold the one true blueprint for success.
And you read one opinion, and it makes total logical sense. You're like, yes, that's it. But then you read another opinion that completely contradicts the first one, and somehow that makes sense too.
It's maddening.
And soon, You are completely paralyzed.
Yeah.
You start bookmarking pages, you're saving videos to a watch later playlist that you and I both know you are never going to open again.
Never.
You have 20 different tabs open. And you came to the internet looking for just a single breadcrumb of clarity, and an hour later, you literally just shut the laptop feeling more confused, more behind, and more stuck than when you started.
Which brings us to the core mission of this workshop deep dive today. I want to speak directly to you, the listener, right now. We really need to validate this friction you're experiencing because there has never, in the entire history of human civilization, been more information available to us. And simultaneously, there has never been less clarity.
It honestly feels like a betrayal of the digital age, doesn't it? Like
Right.
we just assume more data inherently equals better decisions.
We do, and it is a massive, massive illusion. So I want to set a clear baseline for this entire journey we're taking together today. If you are sitting there right now feeling confused about your life or your business or your relationships, I need you to hear this.
Listen closely to this.
You are not confused because you're doing something wrong. You aren't lacking intelligence, and you certainly aren't lacking drive. You are confused simply because you are trying to process too many inputs at once.
Trying to force clarity while your nervous system is just totally dysregulated by endless options. It's like trying to install a massive software update while your laptop battery is at 1%.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to frame it.
Right. The system simply cannot handle the load. It's just going to crash.
That is the perfect mechanical analogy. Our goal for this session is to move you out of that 1% battery state. We want to take you from that noisy, frantic mental space into a state of quiet, embodied confidence.
Yes.
Because over the next hour or so, we are going to prove to you that clarity does not come from gathering more information. It never has. Clarity actually comes from less noise and better internal alignment.
So let's look at the actual mechanics of this.
Yeah.
Because this feeling of paralysis, this idea that having all the answers right at our fingertips actually breaks our brains.
Yeah.
It feels like a very modern internet age problem, right?
It does feel that way.
Like we instantly blame social media and Google. But this fundamental flaw in how we process choices, it isn't actually new at all, is it?
Not even a little bit. To really understand the trap you're in, we have to look back at the history of how human beings actually understand decision-making.
Okay, take us back.
So this phenomenon was identified long before the digital age. It actually takes us back to 1947 and a really brilliant researcher named Herbert Simon.
1947, so well before the internet, well before smartphones, before the 24-hour news cycle was even a thing.
Decades before all of that. We're talking post-World War II. And you really have to understand the prevailing mindset of the mid-20th century academic world.
What were they thinking back then?
Well, the ivory tower economists and psychologists of the time firmly believed that humans were purely rational creatures, like machines. They coined this concept called Homo economicus, or the economic man.
The economic man. It sounds very rigid.
Oh, totally rigid. Their absolute belief was that when a human being faces a choice, they just naturally act like a supercomputer. They gather all the available facts, mathematically weigh every single option against the others, calculate the risks perfectly, and invariably pick the ultimate, objectively best outcome.
It sounds like they thought we were literal algorithms, not actual animals. Like they just stripped all the emotion, the fatigue, the real-world friction completely out of the equation.
Exactly. They projected this mathematical perfection onto messy human lives. But Herbert Simon was actually out there in the real world. He wasn't just, building theoretical models in a classroom.
What was he doing?
He was observing real administrators, executives, and everyday people making actual on-the-ground decisions. He watched them sweating over real files, dealing with incomplete information, racing against deadlines.
Real human behavior.
Right. And what he noticed completely disrupted the academic world. He realized that people were doing absolutely none of what the prevailing theories predicted.
They were acting like supercomputers.
Not at all. They weren't optimizing. They weren't gathering all the facts before making a move.
Well, because gathering all the facts is impossible.
Right.
You'd be researching forever. So what were they actually doing instead?
He introduced this concept that he called bounded rationality. He observed that human beings have very real biological and situational limits. We have bounds.
Meaning we can only process so much.
Yes.
Nice.
We have limits on our time. We just can't research forever. We have limits on our cognitive capacity. We can only hold so many variables in our head at once. And we have limits on our energy.
So true.
So because of these bounds, we do not optimize. We do something he called satisficing.
Satisficing. That's combining satisfy and suffice.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It
Yeah.
means we search through our options, only until we find a path that meets our basic criteria for acceptability.
Interesting.
We choose what is good enough to move forward, and then we just stop looking. Simon realized something radical for the time, which is that human beings are actually built to operate this way. It's literally a survival mechanism. But his most disruptive observation, and this is the crux of why your grocery store trip went completely off the rails, is what happens when we break those bounds.
Right, the overload point, when we push past the limit.
Exactly. He observed that the more options people were given, the worse their decisions actually became.
Wait, the worse they became. Like, not just that it took them longer to decide, but the actual quality of the choice degraded.
The quality completely degraded. Because when you introduce too many options, you exceed the bounds of human rationality. The cognitive load just becomes way too heavy. The biological system basically crashes.
We actually have concrete visual proof of this crashing system in action, don't we? If we fast forward a bit from Herbert Simon, there's a legendary psychological study that just brings this perfectly to life.
Oh, yes.
I'm talking about Sheena Iyengar's famous JAM study at Columbia University.
The JAM study is basically a foundational text for understanding modern paralysis. It's so good. Paint the picture of that experiment for everyone.
Okay, so imagine it's a regular Saturday at this very upscale, busy grocery store. The researchers set up a beautiful tasting booth right near the entrance, and every few hours, they switch the display.
Okay.
So for half the day, they put up this massive, overwhelming display of 24 different varieties of gourmet jam. I'm talking every exotic flavor combination you can possibly imagine on one table.
The ultimate optimization scenario. I mean, the prevailing economic theory would say this is absolute heaven, right? The absolute perfect choice for every individual palate must be on that table somewhere.
Exactly. And initially, the 24 jam display worked like a charm to attract attention. It was a huge spectacle.
Yeah.
About 60% of the shoppers who walked by actually stopped to sample the jams.
They were totally drawn in by the abundance.
They were. But here is the staggering part. Of the people who stopped at the massive display of 24 jams, only 3% actually bought a jar.
3%, that is wild. They tasted, they evaluated, they thought about it, and then they just walked away empty-handed.
Complete paralysis. Now look at the other half of the experiment. For the rest of the day, the researchers took away the massive display, and they put out only 6 varieties of jam.
A much smaller, limited selection.
Right. Now, fewer people stopped at the table to begin with, only about 40% of shoppers. But of the people who stopped at the 6 jam display, 30% of them actually bought a jar.
That is a 10-fold increase in actual action.
10 times the sales, literally just by removing options. People saw 6 jams, they found one that looked pretty good, and they bought it. They Satisficers.
Yes.
But when they saw 24 jams, they felt this immense pressure to find the absolute perfect transcendent jam experience. And because they couldn't guarantee they were making the single best choice out of 24, they just made no choice at all.
This is where we really have to pause and look at the deeper implications of this. Because, it's one thing to talk about buying boysenberry preserve versus a strawberry rhubarb.
Right. Low stakes.
Exactly. If you walk away from a jam table, nothing really happens to your life. But how does this apply to the heavy, consequential choices we make?
And that's exactly where I want to push back on this whole theory for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Because satisficing just picking what's good enough and moving on, it makes total sense for a $4 jar of fruit spread.
Sure.
It makes sense for, like, picking a movie on Netflix on a Tuesday night. If I make a mistake there, the stakes are essentially zero. But what about life choices?
The big ones.
Yeah. What about who we marry, or what career we pivot into, or what neighborhood we buy a house in? Isn't good enough just a polite scientific way of saying we are settling?
That's the fear, isn't it?
It is. Like, if I'm choosing a life path, I don't want to just settle. I want the absolute best.
That is the most common and honestly the most crucial pushback to this entire concept. And to answer it, we really have to look at the work of psychologist Barry Schwartz.
But what does he say?
He wrote a brilliant book called The Paradox of Choice. And he took Herbert Simon's theories and applied them to modern psychology and emotional well-being. Schwartz basically divided people into 2 categories based on how they approach decisions: maximizers and satisficers.
Okay, so a maximizer is the person standing totally paralyzed in front of the 24 jams, terrified of making the wrong call.
Exactly. A maximizer is someone who seeks the ultimate objective best in every single scenario. They truly believe the perfect choice exists out there somewhere, and it is their personal job to hunt it down.
No pressure, right?
Right. If they're buying a car, they have to read every single review of every single car in their price range. If they're choosing a career, they have to analyze every possible trajectory to ensure they don't miss out on a more lucrative or fulfilling opportunity.
Wow.
They treat life like an exam where only a score of 100% is acceptable. Anything less is a failure.
That sounds incredibly exhausting, just physically and mentally draining.
It is neurologically depleting, and the data Schwartz uncovered backs that up in really terrifying detail. He found that maximizers experience chronic stress, significantly higher rates of depression, and, ironically, deep, lingering regret after they finally do make a choice.
Wait, why regret? If they did all the research and they found the objectively best option, shouldn't they be thrilled with what they picked?
You would think so. But it's because of the psychological mechanism of opportunity cost.
Oh, I see.
When a maximizer finally chooses one path, their brain doesn't just compare their choice to reality. It compares their choice to an idealized, flawless amalgamation of all the phantom options they left behind.
Oh, wow.
So when you leave 23 jams on the table, you imagine that one of them held the secret to perfect happiness. A maximizer is basically haunted by the ghosts of unlived lives.
That is such a powerful image.
Yeah.
Haunted by the paths not taken.
Exactly. Because reality, with all its normal, everyday friction, can never compete with the flawless fantasy of the option you didn't choose.
So the actual pursuit of the quote-unquote best actively destroys their ability to enjoy the choice they do make.
Yes.
And the Satisficers, how do they avoid this phantom regret?
Well, Satisficers operate with a completely different biological and psychological framework. Now, they have criteria, they have standards, and let's be very clear, Satisficers often have incredibly high standards.
So it's not about lowering the bar.
Not at all. But once they find an option that meets those high standards, they choose it and they stop looking. They fully commit. And Schwartz's research found that Satisficers experience significantly higher life satisfaction, way more daily happiness, and almost zero post-decision regret.
So to address my pushback about settling, the mechanism there is entirely different.
Completely different. Settling is an act of defeat. Settling is looking at what you truly desire, telling yourself you're unworthy or incapable of having it, and just accepting misery.
Right.
Satisficing is an act of empowerment. Satisficing is valuing your internal peace over an impossible external standard of perfection.
Oh, I love that. Valuing internal peace.
It's recognizing that the quest for the perfect choice is a trap that steals your presence. Satisficing is choosing a clear, sufficient direction so that your life can actually generate momentum.
Valuing your internal peace over an impossible standard of perfection. You know, I can tell you exactly what the maximizer trap feels like in the body. In the exact moment I realized I had to become a Satisficer to survive.
Please share that. Let's ground this in that lived experience, because moving from the academic theory to the visceral reality is where the actual shift happens for the listener.
So a few years ago, I was at a major crossroads with my creative business. The landscape of my industry was shifting really rapidly, and I knew I needed to pivot my offerings.
Okay.
I had this core coaching and creative model that I truly loved, but the noise online was just deafening. Everyone was telling me I needed to scale.
Right. It's always scale, scale, scale.
Always. Build a massive agency model, create 20 different automated digital products, and be omnipresent on every single social media platform.
The classic internet echo chamber of optimization.
Yes, and I slipped right into peak maximizer mode. I decided I was going to research my way to the absolute perfect, bulletproof, unfailable business plan.
Oh, no.
So I started aggressively consuming. I listened to hours of interviews with industry leaders, literally on 2x speed so I could cram more in. I bought massive online courses. I joined private mastermind groups. I read every single book on scaling a business I could possibly get my hands on.
You were gathering the 24 jams.
I had 240 jams. Honestly, my desk was quite literally covered in Post-it notes, flowcharts, and financial projections.
Yeah.
And the physical and emotional tension of this process was just agonizing.
I can literally feel the stress just hearing about it.
I was lying awake at 3 a.m., my heart pounding in my chest, having imaginary defensive arguments with business gurus in my head.
Wow.
I felt this crushing pressure to get it right. Because the underlying fear was catastrophic. Like, if I pick the wrong model, I lose everything. If I make the suboptimal choice, I'm a very public failure.
And we have to call that what it is. That isn't just professional diligence. That is your nervous system entering a state of sheer survival terror.
It really was. And the more advice I consumed, the more paralyzed I became. I hit an absolute wall, total cognitive gridlock.
Yep.
I couldn't write a simple email to my list. I couldn't record a single piece of audio. I was completely frozen in place. And then the turning point happened.
What happened?
It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was staring at this incredibly complex spreadsheet I had built, comparing 5 different monthly subscription models, and I suddenly felt physically nauseous.
Oh, wow. Like literally sick.
Just sick to my stomach with the absolute overwhelm of it all. And in that exact moment, I realized that my external searching wasn't the solution. It was actually the active cause of my pain.
The friction finally reached its breaking point. So what did you do in that physical state of nausea?
I physically slammed the laptop shut. Literally, bang. I pushed my chair away from the desk. I walked into the living room. I sat directly on the floor, and I just demanded total quiet for myself.
Just cut the noise.
I cut the noise. I stopped asking the internet, what is the perfect, most profitable, foolproof option? And I asked myself a completely different question.
And changing the prompt changes the output. What was the question?
I just asked, what actually feels aligned for me right now?
Oh, notice the shift there. Not what is perfect, not what is guaranteed.
Right, not perfect. Not what the experts say will 10x my revenue in a week. What feels aligned with my actual daily energy, my capacity for joy, my true strengths.
And what happened?
The answer rose up almost instantly. It was a much simpler, smaller, more intimate business model. It was essentially doing deep, focused work with a smaller group of people.
A completely different direction.
Yeah. It wasn't going to make me a billionaire tomorrow, and it definitely wasn't what the gurus were screaming about. But the moment I acknowledged it as my truth, this visceral, physical wave of relief just washed over my entire body.
Wow.
My shoulders dropped like 2 inches, my jaw unclenched, the nausea just vanished. I could take a full deep breath for the first time in weeks.
That physical relief is the ultimate biological indicator of clarity.
It was undeniable. I made the choice right then and there, sitting on the floor, to move in that simpler direction. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have a guarantee of success. I just chose the aligned direction.
So you trusted it.
I did. And the clarity that followed was astounding. I realized I didn't need to know step 10. I just needed to know step 1. And I needed to take it without the weight of 240 jams on my back.
You know, if we look closely at what happened to you on the floor, we can actually start to unpack the mechanics of clarity. Because when you tell that story, the most profound insight is that the clarity you were desperately looking for wasn't missing.
Right.
You didn't have to go out and acquire it from a guru. It was already there. It was just buried.
Buried under layers and layers of spreadsheets, expert opinions, and Post-it notes.
Exactly. And there are very specific invisible forces that cause that exact breakdown you described. I actually want to walk through the 3 layers of noise that bury our clarity.
Let's do it.
Because once you, the listener, can identify these mechanical layers operating in your own life, you can start actively dismantling them.
Let's pull them apart. What is the first layer of noise?
The first layer is input overload and cognitive load. To understand the mechanics of this, we look at the work of Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. In his groundbreaking research on human judgment, he outlines 2 distinct systems of thinking in the brain.
System 1 and System 2, right?
Yes. System 1 is fast, it's intuitive, automatic, and emotional. It operates entirely in the background. System 2 is slow, analytical, deliberate, and logical.
Okay, so System 2 is me building the complex subscription model spreadsheet, and System 1 is a gut feeling I had sitting on the living room floor.
That is the exact mapping. Now, when you were trying to make a major life decision, a pivot, a purchase, a move, you are heavily engaging System 2. You're trying to be deeply analytical.
Right.
But working memory, which is essentially the RAM of your brain that handles this active processing, has an incredibly strict biological limit. This is known as cognitive load theory. Your brain simply maxes out its processing power. Trying to process 50 conflicting life paths on your working memory is quite literally like opening 50 high-definition video tabs on a 5-year-old laptop.
The fan just starts spinning out of control.
The fan spins uncontrollably, the screen freezes, and eventually the entire system crashes.
And it's not just the volume of tabs, right? It's the actual energy it takes to keep them all open. Every single time I read a new guru's advice, I had to actively evaluate it.
Which brings in a compounding factor: decision fatigue. This is a concept extensively studied by psychologist Roy Baumeister. Every single choice you make, no matter how microscopic, depletes a finite biological reserve of mental energy.
Every single choice.
Yes, scrolling your feed and deciding whether to stop on a video, that's a decision.
Right.
Evaluating if a piece of advice applies to you, decision. Wondering if the influencer is grifting or telling the truth, decision.
So you're just draining the battery.
Exactly. By the time you sit down to make the real choice about the trajectory of your life, your cognitive battery is at absolute zero. Endless scrolling doesn't make you more informed. It literally makes you cognitively bankrupt.
Cal Newport's work on deep work really points to this as well. We treat our attention like it's this unlimited stream of water that we can just leave running all day. But it's actually a very small, precious reservoir.
Yes, beautifully said.
And when you give it away in little droplets to every expert and algorithm on the internet, you have literally no attention left to direct inward.
So if our internal battery is completely drained by System 2 decision fatigue, but our brain still has an urgent choice to make, what is its biological workaround?
It has to do something.
Right, it can't just shut off, so it outsources the heavy lifting. And that is where we hit the second layer of noise, which is external referencing.
External referencing. This is the habit of basically outsourcing your intuition to the crowd.
Yes. When we are too tired to synthesize our own truth, we look outside for anyone who speaks with certainty. We look for the adult in the room.
I was doing this so intensely. I was roaming the internet, essentially begging someone to just tell me what to do so I wouldn't have to bear the actual responsibility of making the choice.
We all do it, and we do it because it is deeply conditioned into us from childhood. Think about the structure of our early lives.
Okay.
Authority figures always hold the answers. The teacher has the answer key to the test. The doctor has the objective diagnosis. The parent knows the rules.
That makes a lot of sense.
So when we face the messy, terrifying ambiguity of adulthood, our neurological reflex is just to ask, well, what would they do? What are the successful people doing? Let me just copy that.
But the inherent danger there is that they aren't living your life. They don't have your specific nervous system, your energetic capacity, your unique history, or your specific desires. When you constantly ask what everyone else would do, you slowly atrophy your own ability to trust yourself. You lose the internal signal entirely because you just stop tuning into it.
You basically become nothing more than an echo chamber of other people's priorities. Which brings us to the third, and honestly perhaps the most powerful, layer of noise. The secret, heavy driver underneath all of this.
The fear of being wrong.
The fear of being wrong. This is the phantom that haunts the maximizer. The intense, suffocating pressure to guarantee a flawless outcome makes choosing anything at all feel impossible.
Why does the fear of making a wrong business choice or a wrong relationship choice feel so disproportionately intense? Because when I was looking at those spreadsheets at 3 a.m., I wasn't just intellectually stuck. I felt physically threatened.
Your body was reacting.
My chest was tight. My breathing was shallow. I felt like I was in actual mortal danger.
The mechanism there is fascinating. Because why does the fear of being wrong feel like an actual physical threat? Because, to your primal biology, it is a physical threat. Your nervous system is ancient. It does not know the difference between a predator hunting you in the woods and the threat of social humiliation, financial loss, or making a public mistake.
Let's dive deeper into that biology, because this is where the science and the spirit really bridge for me. Clarity isn't just an intellectual thought process. It is a physical state of the body.
It is entirely governed by the body. To understand how clarity works mechanically, we look at Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory.
I love his work.
It's so vital. Your nervous system is constantly running a background program called neuroception. It is endlessly scanning your environment, both internal and external, for cues of safety or danger.
Always scanning.
Always. And when you are faced with endless choices, conflicting advice, and the immense pressure to optimize your life perfectly, your nervous system perceives a massive influx of unresolvable ambiguity.
And to our ancient ancestors, ambiguity equaled death. Like, if you don't know for certain which berries are safe or which rustle in the bushes is a tiger, you don't survive.
Precisely. So your nervous system does what it is designed to do. It shifts you out of the ventral vagal state, which is the state of social engagement, calm, connection, and clarity, and it drops you straight into survival mode.
The fight or flight response.
Yes, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. This triggers a biological event known as an amygdala hijack.
The amygdala is basically the brain's primal alarm system, right?
Yes. The amygdala detects the threat of making the wrong choice. and it sounds a massive chemical alarm. And when that alarm goes off, the brain literally reroutes blood flow, oxygen, and electrical activity away from the prefrontal cortex.
And the prefrontal cortex is the executive center. It's the exact part of the brain that does the logical thinking, the long-term planning, the synthesis of information.
It is the seat of clarity. And during a hijack, it is taken completely offline. Your brain basically says, we do not have the metabolic resources to plan a 5-year business strategy right now. We are actively being hunted by a tiger.
Oh my goodness.
So you are sitting there at your laptop, staring at 50 tabs, trying to force your brain to give you a clear, logical answer. But the actual biological hardware required to generate that answer has been temporarily shut down by your stress response.
This is a massive aha moment. The insight here, and I really want the listener to feel the weight of this, is that you cannot outthink a stressed nervous system.
You cannot outlogic a biological survival response. It's impossible. You must regulate the physical state before you can access the clear thought.
That explains the mechanics of my turning point perfectly. It totally explains why I had to physically slam the laptop shut, walk away, and sit on the floor to get quiet. I wasn't just taking a break.
No, you were doing something much deeper.
I was unintentionally regulating my nervous system. I was sending a physical signal to my vagus nerve, basically telling my body, the tiger isn't here, you are safe in this living room, you don't have to fight the spreadsheet.
And by doing that, by dropping the perceived threat, you allowed the blood flow to return. You allowed another incredible piece of neurological machinery to come back online, the default mode network, or the DMN.
Let's unpack the default mode network, because this is the scientific, grounded explanation for what we so often casually call intuition.
Absolutely. Gurdjieff Jonzer is a cognitive psychologist who has done profound work on the nature of intuition. He argues that intuition is not magic. It's not a mystical whim or some random guess.
So what is it?
Intuition is rapid, unconscious pattern recognition. Over the course of your life, your brain has absorbed millions of data points, subtle emotional cues, micro-expressions, and lived experiences.
An ocean of data that is exponentially larger than what our working memory could ever hold consciously.
Vastly larger. And the default mode network is a network of interacting brain regions that becomes highly active specifically when you are not focused on a heavy external task.
When does it light up?
It lights up when you are daydreaming, meditating, taking a walk, or literally just staring out the window.
This is the exact reason why the most brilliant paradigm-shifting ideas always seem to hit us when we're taking a shower or driving a super familiar route.
Because you are finally leaving the conscious brain alone. The DMN is the space where the brain consolidates all that vast unconscious data, connects the dots, and synthesizes it into a clear gut feeling.
Wow.
But here is the critical catch. To access this rapid pattern recognition, the brain's default mode network requires quiet, internal processing time.
Which means if you are constantly consuming external inputs, like if you have a video playing in your ear while you walk, TikTok open while you sit on the toilet, YouTube running while you cook dinner, the DMN never gets the silence it needs to actually turn on.
The internal signal is entirely drowned out by the external static.
This is where we must bridge the neuroscience with the concepts of manifestation that we talk about so often on this show. Because when you describe reducing the external static to allow the internal signal to rise, you are perfectly mapping the core tenets of manifestation.
The overlap is undeniable. I mean, the language is different, but the actual mechanics are identical.
Let's look at Neville Goddard, one of the grandfathers of modern manifestation philosophy. For anyone totally new to his work, his entire philosophy hinged on the idea that your inner state creates your external reality.
Right.
He taught that trying to force reality to change from the outside, the hustling, the grinding, the over-researching, it's exhausting and ultimately futile. You have to embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled internally first.
And what does the state of the wish fulfilled actually feel like in the body? It feels like a regulated nervous system.
Exactly.
You cannot cultivate a state of deep internal trust and fulfillment if your body is trapped in an external panic response.
Building on that, Abraham Hicks teaches the exact same mechanism, just using the language of alignment and resistance. Hicks proposes that clarity, well-being, and momentum are your natural baseline states.
You default to them.
Right. You don't have to force clarity into existence. You just have to stop doing the things that create resistance. When you drop the resistance, the overthinking, the chronic fear of being wrong, the constant polling of everyone else's opinions, the clarity naturally rises to the surface, literally like a cork bobbing up in water.
The lesson there is just incredibly practical. You do not manifest from a state of frenetic confusion. You manifest from a state of clear, grounded, repeated direction. And less noise equals a stronger, clearer signal.
Less noise equals a stronger signal.
Alignment is really just a regulated nervous system allowing your default mode network to surface the truth you already hold.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground here. We've explored the 1940s illusion of perfect optimization, the psychology of maximizers versus satisficers, the biological trap of cognitive load, and the profound bridge between the vagus nerve and manifestation.
It's a lot of theory.
It is, but understanding the theory is only half the work. We are not just here to explain concepts. We are here to shift your state.
And this is where we transition into the workshop portion of our time together. We are going to give you, the listener, the exact tools and practices to move from paralysis into alignment right now.
I want to introduce a core practice we use called the signal versus noise practice. And we're going to do this together, actively, in real time.
Awesome.
I want you to pause for a second and think about a specific decision you are currently facing. It does not have to be a life or death choice. It could be a creative pivot, a boundary you need to set with a friend, or an investment you're considering. Bring something to mind that has been causing you that spinning, looping feeling.
Really hold that decision in your mind.
Step 1 is to actively identify the noise. I want you to look at this decision and ask yourself, what external voices are heavily influencing me right now? Are you worried about what your peers on LinkedIn will think if you pivot?
Or are you operating under a false urgency created by an algorithm telling you that you're falling behind?
Right. What are the heavy shoulds hovering over this choice?
The immense power of this step really lies in simply naming it. When you can say, my chest is tight because I saw 3 posts about scaling an agency and I feel inadequate, you externalize the pressure.
You separate it from yourself.
You separate it from your identity. You realize it is not you, it is just noise. And just naming the noise actively weakens its grip on your amygdala.
Step 2 is to return to the signal. Now that you have named the noise, I want you to consciously push it to the periphery of your mind.
Yeah.
Just clear the space. Now, ask yourself a completely different question.
Change the prompt.
Not what is the smartest, most bulletproof move. Not what is the perfect guaranteed outcome. Ask yourself what feels aligned, what direction feels clean, simple, and unforced.
I want to focus on that word unforced because a massive misconception about clarity is that it arrives like this frantic, adrenaline-fueled aha moment with literal fireworks.
That's how it is in the movies.
Right, but true clarity rarely feels like adrenaline. It often feels incredibly quiet. Sometimes it even feels a bit boring. It feels like a subtle, grounded, simple, yes, this is just the next step.
When I finally made that business pivot on my living room floor, there were definitely no fireworks. It was just a deep, full-body exhale. So, listener, what feels clean and unforced for you right now? Hold on to that feeling. Because step 3 is our micro practice, and this is where we actually build momentum.
Step 3 introduces the concept of decision windows. We established earlier that endless research is often just a disguised form of avoidance.
Oh, totally.
You're researching to avoid the vulnerability of actually committing to a path. So you must actively constrain the bounds of your rationality, just like Herbert Simon discovered. You must set a strict time limit.
How strict are we talking?
It depends entirely on the scale of the decision. If it is a minor operational choice, like picking a software tool or setting a meeting date, give yourself 10 minutes. If it is a larger strategic pivot, give yourself 1 hour, or at absolute maximum, 1 day.
Put a hard stop on it.
You state clearly, I am going to evaluate my options, and by 4 p.m. today, I am making a choice and moving. And when that timer goes off, you choose based on the strongest signal you have in that moment. You satisfice.
I can feel the listener's fear spiking right there. The immediate response is, but what if I choose the wrong thing at 4 p.m.? What if I make a massive mistake?
Which is exactly why we have to enter manifestation debug mode. We have to rewrite the underlying programming.
Let's debug the code.
Yeah?
Because that fear is the exact virus crashing the system.
The old code, the faulty maximizer programming that is draining your battery, is the belief I need to be 100% sure before I act. I want you, the listener, to just feel what that belief does in your physical body when you hear it. I need to be 100% sure.
It immediately restricts my throat. It causes my breathing to become totally shallow. It makes me want to shrink back, hide, and just wait for a guarantee that is never, ever going to come.
Because it is a biologically impossible standard. The universe is dynamic. Markets change, people change, you change. You can never, ever be 100% sure. So we have to rewrite the code with a new operating system.
What's the new code?
The new code is this. I choose a direction, and I refine as I go.
I choose a direction, and I refine as I go. Just saying it out loud brings a wave of relief.
Yeah.
It gives you immediate permission to just move. Because the profound truth is that action doesn't require clarity. Action is what creates clarity.
That is the feedback loop of reality. When you take a physical step, the environment actually responds. You generate new, tangible data.
You actually learn something real.
Right. You might realize, oh, I thought I wanted to go left, but taking a step left feels incredibly heavy and restrictive.
Yeah.
Let me pivot slightly to the right. You cannot get that tactile real-world feedback while sitting perfectly still, staring at a screen in a state of paralysis. You must move to receive the feedback.
Action creates the feedback loop. I absolutely love that. So let's slow things down even further. We have debugged the mental code. Now we want to anchor this shift deep into your physical experience. We are going to build a space for you to actually feel this transition.
This is the moment for deep experiential reflection. We are going to serve as a workshop mirror for you right now. I'm going to ask you a few prompts. Do not try to solve them intellectually.
Stay out of the head.
Just take a slow, deep breath, listen to the question, and see what raw, unedited answer naturally rises to the surface from your default mode network.
Take a breath. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears.
Where in your life right now are you actively over-consuming information to avoid taking action?
Just feel whatever comes up.
What specific decision are you currently hiding from by pretending you need to do just a little more research?
We all have one.
What is one thing in your life that actually feels quite simple and obvious, but you are currently overcomplicating it out of fear of being judged?
Just let those realizations sit. You do not have to fix them today. Just bringing them out of the shadows and acknowledging them is massive progress. And to help integrate this shift from the frantic energy of your head down into the grounded reality of your body, we're going to move into an immersive, guided visualization.
I invite you, if you are in a place where it is safe to do so, to go ahead and close your eyes. If you are driving or walking, simply soften your gaze and let your peripheral vision widen.
Let the edges blur a little.
Deliberately slow your breathing down. Inhale deeply. And let the exhale be twice as long.
I want you to imagine yourself standing in the center of a massive cavernous room.
Notice the overwhelming atmosphere of this space. It is chaotic. It is filled to the brim with overlapping voices, flashing screens, and frantic movement.
It is the sound of 100 different conversations happening all at once. It's the experts shouting advice. It's the influencers projecting their urgency onto you. It's the warnings, the shoulds, the rigid rules about how your life is supposed to look.
Everyone in this room is trying to shove a different map into your hands. Everyone is telling you which way to turn.
Feel the physical weight of that noise in your body. Feel how it pulls at your attention, just scattering your precious focus in a dozen different directions. Notice how it makes your chest feel tight. It is loud. It is paralyzing.
But look down at your hand. You are holding a small remote control. And on this remote is a single heavy dial for volume.
Slowly, deliberately, you reach out with your thumb and you begin to turn that dial down.
And as you turn it just a fraction, notice what happens. The most abrasive, aggressive voices begin to fade. The external warnings and the manufactured urgency completely lose their edge. They become a soft murmur.
You turn the dial a little more. Feel the resistance of those old conditioned voices, maybe parental expectations, maybe societal benchmarks. Feel them push back for a second, and then watch them dissolve into the background static.
You turn it again. The opinions of people who do not truly know you, the phantom judgments of strangers on the internet, they go completely silent.
until finally you turn the dial all the way down to absolute zero. And the massive room is plunged into a thick, beautiful, uninterrupted stillness.
Feel the space that instantly opens up in your chest. The suffocating pressure is gone. There's nothing to figure out right now. There's no one to perform for. There's no perfect standard to meet.
And in the center of that profound, spacious quiet, you notice something you simply couldn't perceive when the room was loud. It is a subtle, steady internal pulse, a pure signal.
It isn't flashing neon. It isn't screaming for your attention. It isn't promising you $1 billion. It is just a calm, clear, simple direction.
It is your own internal compass, finally free from the magnetic interference of everyone else's panic, reorienting itself, pointing toward what actually feels true for you, pointing toward genuine alignment.
You don't need to logically analyze it. You don't need to build a spreadsheet to justify it to the empty room. You just recognize it. It feels like coming home.
And in this quiet space, you realize that you have the ultimate permission to simply take one single step in that direction. The entire path does not need to be illuminated. The next step will light up as soon as your foot touches the ground.
Feel the visceral, physical relief of trusting that quiet signal.
Let that feeling of deep trust and relief anchor in your body. Memorize what this physical state feels like. And when you are ready, take one more deep breath, and you can open your eyes, bringing that quietness back into the present moment with you.
That was beautiful. If we were to summarize the massive journey we have just taken together, we started in the agonizing physiological paralysis of choice overload. We look back to the 1940s and realize that human beings are fundamentally biologically meant to choose a good enough path and generate momentum rather than perpetually driving ourselves mad trying to optimize everything.
We learned the vital distinction between the maximizer, who is constantly haunted by the phantom regret of paths not taken, and the satisficer who chooses peace and moves forward.
We uncovered that clarity is not a logic puzzle you solve by burning out your cognitive RAM. Clarity is a regulated nervous system state. When you are stressed by infinite options, your amygdala literally starves your decision-making centers of blood flow.
And we felt the physical, emotional shift from drowning in noisy external inputs, the resistance to tuning in to the quiet internal alignment of the default mode network.
The core takeaway of this entire deep dive, the one thing I really want you to carry with you if you forget everything else, is this. You do not need the perfect answer. You just need a clear enough direction.
A clear enough direction. Because the pursuit of perfection is a myth that keeps you stagnant and terrified. But choosing a direction creates the momentum that actually changes your life.
So we have an action step for you this week. A very real, tangible mission. I want you to pick one single decision that you have been delaying. It could be a tiny operational choice or it could be a massive life pivot. But pick one.
Next, drastically and ruthlessly reduce the external input regarding that decision. Stop asking your friends what they would do. Stop Googling for the ultimate answer. Just cut the noise entirely.
Then set a strict time limit. Give yourself a decision window. Tell yourself, by Friday at noon, I am making a call.
And when that window closes, you choose a direction, you drop the need to be 100% sure, and you physically move. You let clarity meet you in motion.
I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to mull over as you navigate your week. We talked about how intuition is really just your default mode network operating quietly in the background, synthesizing millions of data points into rapid pattern recognition, if that is true. What brilliant, paradigm-shifting, profoundly aligned solutions already exist inside of you right now, fully formed, just waiting for you to stop scrolling long enough to actually hear them?
What a stunning question to sit with. The answers are already there. The right path is already known to your body. You just have to be willing to clear the clutter so you can feel it.
So the next time you find yourself in the grocery store of life, whether you are staring at 47 different roasts of coffee or 50 different career paths, feeling your chest tighten.
I want you to take a deep breath, smile at the absolute absurdity of the human condition, pick a direction, and just keep walking.
Because once you clear the noise and trust your internal signal, the entire game of life changes, which is exactly what we will be exploring in our next deep dive, the new currency: attention, energy, and skill.
It is going to be incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for joining us on this workshop journey today. Remember, wherever you are right now, whether you feel deeply confused or perfectly clear, you are exactly where you need to be to take the next step. We will catch you on the next deep dive.